Hello, my lovely students, and welcome to my channel, Ms. Threed's Teaching Treasure Trove. And in today's lesson, I'm going to talk about a short story written by William Somerset Maugham. This is a very funny short story, and I'm going to read it and discuss the vocabulary. So, if you love short stories, then this is just the lesson for you. And we could start. I caught sight of her at the play, and in answer to her beckoning, I went over during the interval and sat down beside her. It was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I do not think I would have recognized her. She addressed me brightly. So this man is talking about some woman. So I caught sight of her. Okay, the first one, the luncheon. Luncheon is a formal lunch. I caught sight of her. To catch sight of someone means to suddenly notice or to see someone or something. So I caught sight of her at the play. Play is a theatre performance. And in answer to her beckoning, beckon means to make a gesture with a hand, arm, or head to encourage someone to approach. I went over during the interval. Interval is a short period between the parts of a performance or a sports event, and sat down beside her. It was long, so they were both watching this some theatre performance, and then he noticed her. It was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I do not think I would have recognized her. So someone mentioned her name, and that's how he recognized her. She addressed me brightly. Address means to speak or write to someone, and brightly means happily. Well, it's many years since we first met. How time flies. We are not getting any younger. Do you remember the first time I saw you? You asked me to luncheon. Did I remember? It was 20 years ago, and I was living in Paris. I had a tiny apartment in the Latin Quarter, and I was earning barely enough money to keep body and soul together. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. I answered, thanking her, and presently I received from her another letter, saying that she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. But her time was limited, and the only free moment she had was on the following Thursday. She asked me if I would give her a little luncheon at Foyot's. Foyot's is a restaurant at which the French senators eat, and it was so far beyond my means that I had never even thought of going there. But I was flattered, and I was too young to say no to a woman. I had 80 francs to live on till the end of the month, and a modest luncheon should not cost more than 15. If I cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks, I could manage well enough. I answered that I would meet her at Foyot's on Thursday at 12:30. Okay, so she says, well, it's many years since we first met. How time flies. How time flies means time passes quickly. And it was 20 years ago, and I was living in Paris. I had a tiny apartment in the Latin Quarter. Tiny means very small, extremely small. And the Latin Quarter is one of the oldest districts in Paris. And I was earning barely enough money to keep body and soul together. So this man had barely enough. Barely means only just enough money. To keep body and soul together means to survive. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. I answered, thanking her, and presently I received from her another letter. Presently means after a short time or soon, saying that she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. To have a chat with someone means to talk to someone or just to chat with someone. Chat can be a verb and also a noun. Okay, the next one. Foyot's is a restaurant at which the French senators eat. A senator is a person who works in the government or a member of a Senate. Senate is the group of politicians who have the most power to make laws in a government. And it was so far beyond my means that I had never even thought of going there. So this man couldn't afford to eat in that restaurant. If something is so far beyond your means, it is more that you can afford. So beyond my means, more than I can afford. And he says, but I was flattered, and I was too young to say no to a woman. Flattered means very pleased and proud because someone has said good things about you, or has made you feel important. When someone, for example, gives us a compliment, we may feel flattered. When someone says good things about us. I had 80 francs to live on. 80 francs. Franc is a basic unit of money of various countries where French is spoken, and that was formerly used in France, Luxembourg, and Belgium. To live on means to have a particular amount of money with which to buy food and other necessities. Okay, and he says if I cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks, I could manage well enough. Cut out means to stop consuming something. So he wanted to cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks so that he could buy that lunch. I could manage well enough. Manage means to succeed in living on a small amount of money. So this man didn't want to say no to that woman, and he agreed to take her to lunch in that restaurant. Okay, and let's continue. The next one. She was not so young as I expected, and in appearance imposing rather than attractive. She was in fact a woman of 40, and she gave me the impression of having more teeth, white and large and even, than were necessary for any practical purpose. She was talkative, but since she seemed inclined to talk about me, I was prepared to be an attentive listener. I was startled when the menu was brought, for the prices were a great deal higher than I had expected. But she reassured me. Okay, she was in appearance imposing. Imposing means having an appearance that looks important or causes admiration. Looks important or causes admiration, but it doesn't mean beautiful. She was in fact a woman of 40. In fact means actually. And she gave me the impression of having more teeth. To give the impression of means to make someone think about something in a particular way. So she gave me the impression of having more. I was under the impression that she had more teeth, white and large and even. Even means similar in size, straight with equal spaces between. But since she seemed inclined to talk about me, inclined to do something means likely or wanting to do something. She seemed inclined to talk about me. I was prepared to be an attentive listener. Attentive means paying close attention to something. I was startled when the menu was brought. So if he is an attentive listener, if someone is an attentive listener, they can listen carefully to someone who is speaking. But I was startled when the menu was brought. Startled means surprised and slightly frightened. For the prices were a great deal higher than I had expected, but she reassured me. Reassure means to comfort someone and stop them from worrying. So she said certain things to make him feel less worried. She said, I never eat anything for luncheon, she said. Oh, don't say that, I answered generously. I never eat more than one thing. I think people eat too much nowadays. A little fish, perhaps. I wonder if they have any salmon. Well, it was early in the year for salmon and it was not on the menu, but I asked the waiter if there was any. Yes, they had a beautiful salmon. It was the first they had had. I ordered it for my guest. The waiter asked her if she would have something while it was being cooked. No, she answered. I never eat more than one thing unless you had a little caviar. I never mind caviar. My heart sank a little. I knew I could not afford caviar, but I could not tell her that. I told the waiter by all means to bring caviar. For myself, I chose the cheapest dish on the menu, and that was a mutton chop. I think you are unwise to eat meat, she said. I don't know how you can expect to work after eating heavy things like chops. I never overload my stomach. Okay, so this woman started to order very expensive food. He said, he answered generously. Generously means in a way that shows a willingness to give money, help, kindness, etc., especially more than is usual or expected. She said, I think people eat too much nowadays at the present time, not in the past. I wonder if they have any salmon. Salmon, be careful with pronunciation because L is not pronounced. So we should say salmon, not salmon, salmon. Salmon is a medium-sized fish that lives in the sea or rivers. Its pink flesh is eaten as a food. Okay, and unless you had a little caviar, I never mind caviar. Caviar means the eggs of various large fish eaten as food. Caviar is usually very expensive and it is a delicacy. Caviar. I never mind. This is used as a polite way of accepting something. She says, I never mind caviar. My heart sank a little. My heart sank a little if one's heart sinks. One's heart sinks. This is used to say that someone becomes sad or disappointed about something. So my heart sank a little. I knew I could not afford caviar. Afford means to have enough money to pay for something. But I could not tell her that. I told the waiter by all means to bring caviar. By all means, this is used to give permission. So yes, certainly. For myself, I chose the cheapest dish on the menu, and that was a mutton chop. A mutton chop is a piece of mutton from the loin. Loin means meat from the back of an animal near the tail. Chop cut from a mature sheep. So this was the cheapest dish on the menu. She said, I think you are unwise to eat meat. Unwise means not wise or sensible, foolish. And I never overload my stomach. Overload means to put too many things in or on something. Okay, this is irony because she keeps saying that she never eats more than one thing, but she ordered so many things. Then came the question of drink. I never drink anything for luncheon, she said. Neither do I answered promptly. Except white wine, she went on, as though I had not spoken. These French white wines are so light. They are wonderful for the digestion. What would you like? I asked her. My doctor won't let me drink anything but champagne. I think I turned a little pale. I ordered half a bottle. I mentioned casually that my doctor had absolutely forbidden me to drink champagne. What are you going to drink then? Water. She ate the caviar and she ate the salmon. She talked gaily of art and literature and music, but I wondered what the bill would come to. When my mutton chop arrived, she said, I see that you are in the habit of eating a heavy luncheon. I'm sure it's a mistake. Why don't you follow my example and just eat one thing? I'm sure you'd feel much better then. I'm only going to eat one thing, I said as the waiter came again with the menu. She waved him aside with a light gesture. No, no, I never eat anything for luncheon, just a bite. I never want more than that. I can't eat anything more unless they had some of those giant asparagus. I should be sorry to leave Paris without having some of them. My heart sank. I had seen them in the shops and I knew that they were horribly expensive. My mouth had often watered at the sight of them. Madam wants to know if you have any of those giant asparagus, I asked the waiter. I hoped he would say no. A happy smile spread over his broad face and he assured me that they had some so large, so splendid, so tender that it was a marvel. I'm not in the least hungry, my guest sighed, but if you insist, I don't mind having some asparagus. I ordered them. Aren't you going to have any? No, I never eat asparagus. I know there are people who don't like them. So this woman is very greedy and selfish, and she doesn't even care if he has enough money to pay the bill or not. Or maybe she is simply not aware of the fact that maybe she is not aware of his financial situation. Okay, so I answered promptly. Promptly means with little or no delay, immediately. And these French white wines are so light, they are wonderful for the digestion. So light means not strong in flavor. Digestion, the ability of the body to change food chemically so that it can be used as energy. And I think I turned a little pale. I mentioned casually. Pale means light, like looking white in the face because you are ill or frightened. Casually means without interest. And she talked gaily of art, but I wondered what the bill would come to. Gaily means happily or brightly. Bill is a piece of paper on which a request for payment is written. If you, for example, go and eat in a restaurant, you have to pay the bill. And she waved him aside with a light gesture. Wave aside means to make a signal like this with the hand for someone or something to move aside. Gesture is a movement of the hands, arms, or head, etc. to express an idea or feeling. And she said, I can't eat anything more unless they had some of those giant asparagus. Giant means huge, extremely large. Asparagus is a plant with pale green juicy stems that are cooked and eaten as a vegetable. They look like this. And I had seen them in the shops and I knew that they were horribly expensive. My mouth had often watered at the sight of them. Horribly means extremely. My mouth watered. If the smell or sight of food makes your mouth water, it makes you want to eat it. At the sight of means upon seeing. Upon seeing, okay, and the next one. And he assured me that they had some so large, so splendid, so tender that it was a marvel. So splendid means magnificent, very impressive, extremely good, large, excellent. Marvel, that it was a marvel, like miracle, a miracle, very surprising, causing admiration. I'm not in the least hungry, my guest sighed. In the least, not at all, not in any way, not in the smallest degree. Okay, let's continue. We waited for the asparagus to be cooked. Panic seized me. It was not a question now how much money I should have left for the rest of the month, but whether I had enough to pay the bill. It would be terrible to find myself 10 francs short and be obliged to borrow from my guest. I could not bring myself to do that. I knew exactly how much money I had, and if the bill came to more, I made up my mind that I would put my hand in my pocket and with a dramatic cry start up and say my money had been stolen. If she had not money enough to pay the bill, then the only thing to do would be to leave my watch and say I would come back and pay later. The asparagus appeared. They were enormous and appetizing. The smell of the melted butter tickled my nostrils. I watched the woman send them down her throat, and in my polite way I talked on the condition of the drama in the Balkans. At last she finished. Okay, so to seize, panic seized me. Seize means to take hold of something. So if panic seized him, it means that he started to feel panic. And it would be terrible to find myself 10 francs short. Short of money. If you are short of money, you don't have enough money. And be obliged to borrow from my guests. To be obliged to do something means feeling that you must do something, like having an obligation to do something. I could not bring myself to do that. To bring yourself to do something means to force yourself to do something that you don't want to. And I made up my mind. To make up your mind means to make a decision, to decide, make up your mind. And with a dramatic cry, start up and say my money had been stolen. Start up means to rise up or stand suddenly. They were enormous and appetizing. Enormous means very large in size. Appetizing, stimulating one's appetite, making you want to eat. The synonyms, some synonyms are mouth-watering, delicious, appetizing. The smell of the melted butter tickled my nostrils. Tickle means to lightly touch. Nostrils are two openings at the end of the nose that you breathe through. At last she finished. At last means finally. And the next part, coffee. I said, yes, just an ice cream and coffee, she answered. It was all the same to me now, so I ordered coffee for myself and an ice cream and coffee for her. You know, there is one thing I thoroughly believe in, she said as she ate the ice cream. One should always get up from a meal feeling one could eat a little more. Are you still hungry? I asked faintly. Oh no, I'm not hungry. Actually, he wouldn't say it like that. He would say it like, are you still hungry? I asked faintly. Oh no, I'm not hungry, you see. I don't eat luncheon. I have a cup of coffee in the morning and then dinner. But I never eat more than one thing for luncheon. I was speaking for you. Oh, I see. Then a terrible thing happened. While we were waiting for the coffee, the head waiter, with a smile on his false face, came up to us bearing a large basket full of huge peaches. Peaches were not in season then. Lord knew what they cost. I knew too a little later, for my guest going on with her conversation absent-mindedly took one. So one peach after ice cream and coffee. You see, you filled your stomach with a lot of meat and you can't eat any more, but I've just had a snack and I shall enjoy a peach. The bill came, and when I paid it, I found that I had only enough for a quite inadequate tip. Her eyes rested for a moment on the 3 francs I left for the waiter, and I knew that she thought me mean. But when I walked out of the restaurant, I had a whole month before me and not a penny in my pocket. Follow my example, she said as we shook hands, and never eat more than one thing for luncheon. I'll do better than that, I answered. I'll eat nothing for dinner tonight. Humorist, she cried gaily, jumping into a cab. You are quite a humorist. But I have had my revenge at last. Today she weighs 21 stone. I'm not sure if this woman was not aware of his financial situation or if she was torturing him on purpose. Okay, the next one, all the same to me. It's all the same to me. It means like I don't care. And there is one thing I thoroughly believe in, thoroughly, very much, greatly. Are you still hungry? I asked. Are you still hungry? I asked faintly, in a very quiet voice. The head waiter is the chief waiter in a restaurant. She absent-mindedly took one peach, absent-mindedly without paying attention. Inadequate tip, inadequate, not sufficient, not enough, too little. Tip is a small amount of money given to someone who has provided you with a service in addition to the official payment and for their personal use. She thought me mean. Mean means not generous or stingy. And she says, humorist, you're quite a humorist. Humorist is a person who writes or tells funny stories, or a person who uses humor skillfully. I think the second one in this case. A person who uses humor skillfully, who has a good sense of humor. And I have had my revenge at last. Revenge is harm done to someone as a punishment for harm that they have done to someone else. So when someone does something bad to you, if you take revenge, then you do something bad to that person. In this case, this man didn't do anything bad to this woman, but she did it to herself because she kept eating like that. And today, he says, today she weighs 21 stone. 21 stone is like 133 kilograms because, so she is obese. She has become obese. Stone is a unit of weight equal to 6.35 kilograms. So if she is 21 stone, she is 133 kilograms. And that was his sweet revenge. Okay, we finished this lesson and you may read it once again and check the vocabulary. If you have any questions or any comments, you may type them below. And if you enjoyed the lesson, please subscribe to my channel and see you next time. Bye!